I'm turning it on. I'm gonna sit on this stool.
Well,
All right. Well, first thing. Okay, so we're talking about. I found that old video from 5-6 years ago about you shooting your foot, and like I say, one of the things that amazed me about it was that you bandaged your own foot. All right. Tell me, how cold was it that day? It was a November day.
November 24th, it was about 15 or 20 degrees. Anybody with common sense wouldn't have been out rabbit hunting.
And who was the guy you were hunting with?
Walter Self.
Walter Self.
Yeah.
And you had, what kind of, you had an old double barrel 12
Had
gauge?
a double barrel 12 gauge hammerless thing. I can't think what kind it was right now.
It was a Winchester maybe,
No,
or no?
it wasn't a Winchester, it was a
Wasn't a Savage or a
Hamilton, I believe.
Hamilton. Never heard of that one.
I'm not sure. It was some, didn't have no hammers on it. And safety had got slid off somewhere.
So you had on a coat and a shirt and a t-shirt,
Had
probably.
an old navy foul weather jacket, fur line, and a shirt, white t-shirt. I know I had that much on. And I had, when it happened, it knocked my shoe off, and I did take my handkerchief and try to put a tourniquet around my leg. And I took my t-shirt off and bandaged my foot up with this.
So you knew that it was possible you could bleed to death from it.
Oh, yeah. It's pouring gushing blood out. A hole through it big enough to stick that big, I guess.
Stick your thumb through it.
I saw the doctor take a piece of sponge, about the size of that thing there, about as long as that, about as thick,
I don't see what you're shooting. I'm going to point down for a second. About the size of that remote.
about 4 inches wide, and he folded it out like that and stuck it through the top of my foot and pulled it out the bottom. I saw him do that.
And that was Dr. Horner.
No, Jack Horner.
Because you and Phil in that video I shot a few years back, we're talking about Dr. Horner, what a good guy he was. But so you eventually, so the guy, the Self fella had to go off and get help, and you're there by yourself.
Yeah, except my dogs, they stayed with me.
So you had dogs. What kind of dogs you have?
They're just mongrel, but they're the best rabbit dogs in the county.
Really?
People come all around to go rabbit hunting with them. Take them rabbit hunting.
So they wasn't beagles or anything? They were just...
No, that's just, I picked up one out at the post office there from the old store. Somebody had set it out in this little poor little thing, and I bought it ice cream and let it eat it. And where it laid down in the dust on the floor, you could see its rib prints. That was old Bruno.
Bruno with your dog, and you fed it ice cream. So became his friend.
It's just a little pup, and I carried it home in my pocket. But it was the best dog I ever had. Then it got with one of the neighbor's dogs, and they had pups. And the other one that's with me was one of his offsprings. And I don't even know what his name was, but it was a good dog too. It was a white one.
I'm going to fix your microphone again. It's a stereo mic. It gets turned one way. I'm going to put on this thing here. I don't think that'll turn. There we go. All right. So now, I've never heard of the dog Bruno before. Well, how did you name the dog?
Just a good name for it.
Did you know something named Bruno? Or?
Big dog.
So you're laying there on the ground. You pull your own jacket off in 15-degree weather. You pull your own shirt off. Take your t-shirt off. Bandage your foot up with it.
Yeah.
Right? Tell me. Well, what was going through your mind during all this? Did you think you were going to die or bleed to death? Or?
No, I thought I wanted to drink water, the worst that I ever did in my life, and I know there's a spring about 500 or 600 yards on down the hill. And if they hadn't come back when they did to get me out, I would have tried to crawl to that spring, get me a drink of water. But they come back, there's three of them. Dean Wagner and McCall. I don't know what his first name was.
Last name McCall.
Last name was McCall. And they come back and they carried me up and got me in Dean Wagner's car and took me to the hospital.
And that was before they had the real Spruce Pine Hospital now.
That's where the old building there, it was called the Williams Clinic at that time. And that's where the old town hall was. They've moved to town hall now up on the hill.
So the town hall used to be there right before you go to across the bridge, right?
Right next across from Burleson's. Right
Across from Burleson's Plain.
Yeah.
So they had a hospital there then.
That was the hospital.
Wow. And so I remember in the other video you said that Jack Horner told you he was going to have to amputate your foot, and you told him no.
Yeah, he said that they had to go back and get Daddy because it's 16 at that time, and they couldn't operate without
Permission.
And they went back and told Daddy, and he come down there. And when Daddy come in, he showed it to him. And said, the only thing they do is amputate. And I said, if that means take my foot off, just leave it alone. I'll go get me another doctor. But another than 50 miles. But he said he'd patch it up. And Steve said I'd probably be back within 6 months to get it cut off. And he patched it up, grafted skin, one thing and another.
Where did you graft the skin from on your body?
Off the leg.
Off your leg. See,
Yeah.
I never even noticed you got a scar on your leg there where they took the skin off.
Not bad now, not bad. Did have hair growing on the bottom of my foot.
Really? I never knew that. Are you lying? I don't ever remember seeing that.
I used to win beer in the Army, but I had hair growing on the bottom of my feet.
Dad,
I did.
why have you never told us this? This is a funny
It
stuff.
ain't nobody's business.
This is very secret. I knew about a lot of that.
And wow, so there's a whole lot more I could add. So you give me a lot of different ways to go down here.
But the good Lord had some reason in that. So normally they wouldn't have never took me in the Army.
Yeah.
But that I still got 35, 34, 36 shotguns.
Pellets. What kind of shot were you shooting with that day?
Number 4 shot in 12 gauge.
But go ahead. You said that you still got him in there. The Lord had a reason.
And well, because at that time I didn't know I was going to get this stuff here, and they took me in the Army, and the VA is doing an extremely good job of taking care of me.
Now that I will ask this, since you've asked me to say, and whether we put it on a video or not, I'll just. So you got ALS now. You found this out about a year ago, or more than a year ago.
It'll be a year, the 23rd of April. Today's the 24th.
Talk to me. Just generalize what the VA has done since finding out you had ALS.
Since finding it out?
Yeah. Well, or even in the process of finding it out. Tell me about how the VA's treated you.
Like a king. Everything they got they got more stuff than I need. And they took everything. They tell me they'll get anything that I need. Well, no, they ain't never said they'd get anything I need. They want to get everything that they think I'll need in the future. It's like I've already got a hospital bed in there. Mm-hmm. I can still walk, but I've got a wheelchair. And anything that they think I'll need, they try to get it in advance so I can be used to it.
They've made some renovations to the house to make it accessible.
Yeah, they fixed a handicapped bathroom down in the basement.
Right.
And hopefully, I ain't going to go into that, but hopefully there'll be some other stuff go on.
But they've never failed to meet your needs, anything you've needed.
No, they've not. They went overboard with it. Not more than I need.
Now we're talking about the VA out of Swannanoa.
Out of Asheville, yeah. Charles George, VA Medical Center. It used to be O-Team. Mm-hmm. That's what I call it. Still call it O-Team. And they come here and take care of me. I don't have to go over there. All I do have to go for the specialty treatment. But I've had a nurse this week. No, the nurse was here Friday. Then a therapist was here yesterday. They come. If I need them, they'll come anytime.
Come to your house.
But at least once a month, they come and check on me. About 4 or 5 of them: occupational therapist, physical therapist, dietitian, psychologist.
And your regular doctors for your ALS are in Duke.
No, got one in Asheville.
Got one in Asheville.
Eva Morgenstern.
Eva Morgenstern.
And she's an angel.
Is she really nice? Huh?
She's very nice. She's just a small lady, but she is a good one. And another one, Dr. Richard Bedlack.
Richard Bedlack.
At the Duke VA and the Duke. He's over the neurological part, whatever it is, the head department. department
Right.
of Duke University and the Duke VA hospital. And I go to a clinic down there every 3 months to see him.
Well, now when you first started having the ALS symptoms, now this might be interesting to people that have ALS or are getting it or wonder if they have it. Tell how it started out. What were the symptoms you started experiencing first?
I couldn't snip my fingernails with fingernail clippers.
You just couldn't handle little things?
Well, I didn't have enough strength in my hands. It's hit me in the shoulders, the upper part of the body. Now, everybody is different. Some people, they can't talk. Some people, it gets them in the legs. Everybody is different, but it hit me in the hands and arms first. Then it got to where I couldn't start my weed eater or my chainsaw. And it got to where I couldn't shave. I couldn't get my hand up. See,
You still have to now lift your hand up, don't you?
I should do that though. But I couldn't get my hand up to shave. And I had a knee replaced over at the VA. And they was very good to me there. Done everything they could. And the knee replacement, total replacement, was a 100% success. And but I was sitting in there shaving one day, and your ma come in and caught me. I didn't know why I was shaving with both hands.
Yeah.
I told her I couldn't get my hands up there. She asked me if I'd told the doctor, and I said no, and I hadn't planned on it. I'd been doing that for 3 or 4 months anyway. So, and then she went in with me to see the doctor the next time I saw my primary care doctor, and told him, and he started checking, and done I don't know, MRIs, CAT scans, and one thing or the other, and kept checking. I think I saw him 3 times within a month there probably, and he sent me to see the urologist, Dr. Morgenstern. Well, she started doing her thing, and it took about another month or 2 to get all the tests. And she called me one night, 9 o'clock or so, after she'd done a lot of testing, said, there's a good doctor in Duke, but she'd like to send me down there if I didn't care to see. Got an appointment down there. And he's the one that diagnosed it. I'm sure she knowed or had a good idea what it was, but she just wanted
Get an absolute leader in the
somebody
field.
verified.
Yeah.
And after that, they took care of everything.
Wow. Well, now here you are a year later. How is it progressing at this point? Have you gotten a whole lot worse, or do you think you're?
My arms has got weaker, and my neck and head, the muscles around my neck, it's got some weaker. But my legs, I can still walk with my walker and everything, but it's not progressing as fast as some people.
Well, I ain't going to talk a whole lot more about that. I want to ask you about other things, although it'll be interesting to talk to you more about ALS as it goes on. Well, what would you say? What would you say to people? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
What did I say to people?
What was you going to say? I'm sorry.
I forgot now.
About why you've not progressed so fast.
Do what?
Why do you think you've not progressed as rapidly as some?
Oh, they said it was because of my family,
And your attitude,
my attitude, and something else.
your friends.
Friends. And I told them I thought it was because a lot of people were praying for me
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, amen to that.
And but there's a lot of people. I've met several people since then with this stuff, and some in a lot worse shape than I am. But I take it one day at a time.
Yeah. I want to ask this just for me, just because I'm here. I never had just thought to. I never have thought. Sometimes I just sit around and I think, well, I'd like to ask Dad this or that or the other thing. What was it like? I don't know if I've ever asked to ask you this question. What was it like when y'all finally had me? I just want to know, 1964 February.
Finally had you.
What was it like to have me in the family?
And what time we had that
I want to hear mom too, but go ahead.
Everybody in the country used to come get me to kill dogs and cats and one thing. And if they had a litter of pups that they didn't want, they'd give me $2. I'd take them and put them in a tow sack, put a few rocks in with them, and throw them in the river.
I don't know if I'm going to share this with you.
And I thought, well, I ought to get him, I guess, right now.
That's terrible.
No, seriously.
No, I
man.
was just joking about that.
Well, I know you were.
You stayed with me, didn't you, Pop?
I stayed with her.
Mama went home to tell Daddy to cook
Yes,
supper. To tell Daddy it'd be tomorrow before I had him. Before she got out of the driveway, here you come.
Well, was you happy when Mom told you she's going to have a baby? How'd you find out you're going to have a baby? Was it your doctor in Texas?
Well, I started vomiting. I vomited all the time, didn't I, honey? On the delivery table, I was vomiting. I was sick. And Daddy would bring me dry toast, wouldn't he, honey?
I'll put Mom here for a minute. Go ahead.
Get red over there, too.
Hugh would bring me dry toast to eat before I got out of the bed to keep me from vomiting, and I still vomited.
Yeah.
All the time.
And she says I never did help her, but I done the washing, ironing, cooking, and everything.
There wasn't no washing, ironing, and cooking to do but what I done. You
Why
know
not?
I've always done.
I remember hanging clothes on. We lived in Texas, and it's so hot and dry that I hung the clothes on the line before I get one basket hung out. I could go back when it's soon to get them hung out. I'd go back and start taking them off.
Are you kidding? It dry that fast?
Yeah.
Now, when you were in Fort Hood, is that when you found out you're going to have me?
Yeah. And we come home on Labor Day.
Labor Day of '63,
Yeah.
I brought her home.
And he had to go back.
So you stayed here in the mountains while he
Yeah.
went back?
Because he was getting out of the Army in December, and you were due in January.
I was due in January.
And they said if Daddy would re-up, that they would pay, to have you. But we didn't re-up.
Yeah.
And you were due January the 26th. But we come home in September. And then I started vomiting and vomiting till I couldn't stop. And I went into premature labor. And that was when President Kennedy was assassinated.
Really?
I was in the hospital with you, and a girl, Emily Burnett, come in and she said, "Wasn't that bad about Kennedy?" And it was Kennedy jokes, just like it's Obama jokes now.
Yeah.
And I said, what about him? She said, "Somebody assassinated him." And I said, "Ha ha, what's the joke?" She says, "It's no joke. He was really killed."
Wow.
So anyway, I stayed in the hospital several days and was fed through the veins to keep from having you, and got in touch with Daddy, and they sent him home. And he was in Dallas, Texas, the day President Kennedy was assassinated.
You were in Dallas or is that true? You were in
Yeah.
Dallas when Kennedy was shot?
Yeah, on his way home. You were the cause of that.
You weren't on the grassy knoll then, were you?
No,
but no, seriously, what were you just en route to the?
We took the boy. I got a ride. I was going to get a plane out of Waco, and something there, and come on home. But I ran into a boy from
South Carolina.
Gaffney, South Carolina, that was coming this way, and I rode with him, and we dropped another boy off in Dallas, and then we drove on home, and that's how we got there.
So did you? Where were you at when you heard the president had been shot?
Over in Louisiana somewhere, I guess.
So you'd already left Dallas before you
Yeah.
even heard the news.
Yeah,
But he was there that day.
I was there that day. We didn't have no radio in the car or nothing. Stopped to get gas somewhere, and they told us.
Now you, on that other video I have of you, you mentioned getting a personal letter from the president. But was that your draft letter? Is that what you're talking about?
That's what it was.
Was it really just a rubber stamp of his? Then it wouldn't have been signed by the president.
No.
Yeah, greetings from the President of the United States. You hear my order.
But you were due January the 26th.
I was
And-
due January 26th.
And I went into labor and spent, like February the 2nd, I went into labor and stayed all night in the hospital. And Mama was down there, and Daddy was working at the thread plant. And he was going to get off from work and be home around 3 o'clock. And Mama said, "When do you think the baby will come?" And they said, "Oh, he probably won't be here till sometime tomorrow." See, then I'm saying he, but we didn't know what you were because there was
no testing back then.
no, and that's the way it ought to be. So anyhow, Mama said, well, I'm going to go on home and fix Bert some supper, and then I'll be back. And Hugh said, well, I'm just going to stay here with her, you know. And said no more than she got in the car and started down till Dr. Horner's office is just right across from the hospital. Here he come up, and your head had come.
So that's February 3rd.
February 3rd. And so you were born February 3rd. And they had turned off my medication for me to breathe. And he done the episiotomy, and I hollered, and he told me, just take it easy, you know. And then he said, now you'll have like 3 pains. And I did. The first one, your head come. And then one more, and your shoulders come. And here you come. And then another one for the afterbirth. And he kept saying, breathe your medicine, breathe your medicine. I said, I'm breathing my medicine. And he got it, and he sniffed of it, and he said, she's had this D baby and has not had a bit of medicine.
So they didn't give you any. They didn't give you any. What kinds of were these? Something like laughing gas or something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
Something to kind of
just to breathe a little mess.
And they had not given you any anesthetic.
To hold up to your face. So you was born painfully.
I want to hear more on this too.
That's good enough now. That's
well, all right. Well, the one thing I'll stop. This is interesting. You're getting tired now, but let me ask you about the gun, though. I wanted to ask you about that. Where was it you ended up getting that old Model 94 Winchester?
From a man named Charlie Tolley that I used to hunt with. He missed a deer with it. And he said he wouldn't have a gun, that he wouldn't hit a deer. I wouldn't know what I'd give him for it, and I just had $5, all I had. And I give him that. And I don't know, I had another old shotgun. I don't know if he took that old...
Trade him $5 in a shotgun?
I think it was the old shotgun wasn't worth $2.
Probably what he shot himself with.
It wasn't a gun I shot myself with, no. It was an old single shot 16 gauge that I had that day. But I had $5 all I had, and I give him that for.
Did you ever kill a deer or anything with it?
Oh gosh, yes, I killed several deers with it.
Okay. So it shot just fine to you.
Yeah. He just missed a deer, and he said he wouldn't have a gun, he missed a deer.
I think I've only shot that gun one time. It was up here, probably in my late teens or something. I think we got it one round. I went up there and shot it. And I remember it kicking pretty hard. It kicked pretty hard for a rifle. 32 Winchester Special.
Yeah.
So you got it back in the 50s sometime?
I'd say that was about 56 or so.
Okay. Charlie Tolley.
And I said,
Charlie
well,
Tolley, he's just a little bitty fellow. But he loved to hunt. And he had another business or two on the side that he...
I think I know what you're talking about. But I won't, okay, all right. I won't ask you no more questions today. Dad, thanks. That's good. That's a good video. That's just...
And I got up that morning and I thought my back was hurt because I'd slept on that floor, you know. And then I went to the bathroom, and you have what you call a bloody show. And I called the doctor up and I said that I was having a show. And he said just to come on in, you know. So I get down there and get into the labor room, and he's sitting over here. And he'd look at me and he'd say, had pain yet? I'd say, no. I just quit having pains. Him sitting there aggravating me. Had pain yet? No. You ain't gonna have a baby. You're just having a show, a really big show. It's
I'm telling you the story. This is a funny story. Keep on telling it.
Anyway, he went out to smoke, and when he went out to smoke, I told that nurse, I said, "Do not let this man back in the room with me, so I can have this baby." And so he didn't come back in, and I started having labor pains, and they came and gave me a shot. And the next thing I knew, I was in this room, and I had him at Mercy Hospital.
This is Tom. Yeah.
Yeah, and the crucifix was like in front of me in the room that I was in. And then when I had Tom and didn't know it because they'd give me that sodium pentothal, and it just knocked me out. And I noticed the crucifix was hanging on a different side, and I couldn't remember what I was saying. I'd start to make a sentence, and when I did, I forget what I was saying, and they was laughing at me. And I was just talking blah, 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 like that. Couldn't get anything to come out. I knew what I wanted to say, but it wouldn't project. And so I said, and I was wanting to say the door was in a different place, you know. And I said, the door. And that's all I could get out. And they looked at me and they said, what about the door? And I think, well, they're going to laugh at me because I can't remember what I want to say about the door. And I just said, pretty. And they said, yeah, that is a pretty door, and laughed at me anyway. And Mama said, would you like a drink of water? And I said, no, I can't have anything till this baby comes. And she said, well, the baby's already here. You've already had him. It's a little boy. She said, feel your stomach. And I started to put my hands up here, and I just went flop, you know. And so I realized then that I had Tom. And that was the story of Tom. And then Tim.
Actually, didn't tell him how Tom got his name.
Oh, yes.
Well, this is
It
interesting.
came time to name the baby. Hugh had named Tony. He wanted to name Tony after his daddy, Tony. And I said, well, all right, we'll name him Tony.
But my granddad's real name's Tawny.
Yeah, but Tony.
Okay.
That's like Nora was Nori and Etta was Edder. And, you know, they just talk choir.
Exactly. All right.
Anyway, he said, I want to name him Tony after Daddy. And I said, okay, but we'll name him Lee after my daddy. So it was Tony Lee. Well, it came time to name Tom. We was going to leave the hospital. We had to give the baby a name. And he wanted to name him Thomas. And I said, no, I don't want to name him Thomas. I want to name him John or Stephen or Matthew or anything but Thomas. And he said, well, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll draw names. And I said, that's good. And he got a piece of paper out and a pencil, and he tore off little scraps of paper. And he'd say, well, what name? And I'd say, Stephen. He'd write, and he'd fold it up and put it in a little box. And all these names, and he shook it up, and he said, now draw a name. And I reached up, and I drew a name out, and it said Thomas. And I was so disappointed because I had got Thomas. And he said, well, here, put it back in there and draw again. And I did. And I pulled it out again, and it said Thomas.
They all
I said, Thomas? You devil, every one of them says Thomas. You wrote Thomas on every name. I said, every paper. I said, well, if you want to name him Thomas that bad, we'll name him Thomas. But I'll name his second name, Thomas Taylor.
But then Taylor was the first name of my granddaddy's real name wasn't Tony. It's Taylor Tony. Taylor Tawny Glenn.
Taylor Tony.
So I'm named after the middle name of both my grandfathers.
Yeah.
Tom's named after whoever Dad wanted Tom to be, and Taylor, which is my granddaddy's first name. Then Tim
came along, and he said, I want to name him Timothy. So I knew not to argue. I said, that's all right. We'll name him Timothy, but I'll give him my maiden name, Mitchell. So he's Timothy Mitchell.
Yeah.
And Tim, I went into labor with Tim and went to the hospital, and they broke my water. And the next day, the doctor said, I'm going to start you in labor, and do you care if some of the nurses checked you while you're having contractions? And I said, no. So I didn't have not one pain.
Tim was the easy
one
one.
contraction did I have the whole day, and them started IVs in me. And all night long I didn't. And the next morning, how deep was the snow, Hugh?
About a foot, I guess.
About a foot of snow. And he stayed with me. He didn't go home. He stayed with me.
I remember I was staying at Granny Tiny's then. I can remember when Tim was born.
And Dr. Lindquist come in, and I said, oh, Lord, is something wrong with my baby? Because your gynecologist is never there when you're going to have that baby,
Yeah.
or never was with me. And he said, no. He said, no, there's nothing wrong with your baby. He said, we've just got a foot of snow out there, and all my patients have canceled, and I knew you were going to have that baby, so I'm just staying with you. So, in a little while, I started having some pains, and they took me into the delivery room, and I had Tim. And Tim was a pretty little baby with hair, looked like a little girl, and I'd always wanted a little girl. And I told Dr. Lindquist, I said, now, don't tell Hugh what it is. And I come out with Tim under my arm, and I said, "It's a girl." And he said, "No, it's not. It's a boy." Dr. Legler said, "I can't tell a lie." The rascal. So that was the story of Tim. Tim was a foot of snow.
Yeah, I remember the snow. There's a lot of snow up here. It snowed up here, too.
It snowed terrible.
So you were in
It's a
Morganton.
good thing I went that night, because I might not have made it through that snow the next day. But that's the story of my 3 boys and their names. Tony, Tom, and Tim, the 3 T's.
Which you always got
Which was
confused.
trouble.
Ultimately was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I'll turn this off now. All right. Well,